Welcome back to the Content Swap Podcast. You are joined by Parker and
Aaliyah.
And if you're new to the Content Swap Podcast, this is a podcast in which we assign each other a piece of content at the end of every episode, engage with it for about a week, and then we reconvene on the podcast and we talk about it. And that's basically all that we do. Before we jump into the picks, we always like to give a little life update. If you want to skip to the picks, we've put the timestamps in the description, so feel free to skip ahead to those if you're not interested in our lives.
Wow.
I had to put that really bleakly, judgmentally. Anyway, so usually you go first. So yeah, what's new in your life this week?
Yeah. I mean, I'll keep this short and sweet because not much is new. Yeah, the school year started. Just figuring out my routine. Started playing Little Misfortune, which is a very interesting game, video game on the Switch. It's spooky, it's kind of eerie, it's creepy, it's funny, but also disturbing and weird.
Yeah, I was listening to you play it this morning, and you play as like a little witch girl?
She's not a witch, she's a little girl.
She's just a little girl?
Yeah.
With an accent that you can't quite place.
Yeah. I don't know if she's supposed to be like
she's got this
German or because signs are in a different language and I don't know what language it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's supposed to be a specific language or
right.
I don't know if it's like an actual language or not.
It's a European sounding accent.
Yeah.
And in general, she just kind of has this like comical voice of delivering really dry, tragic information.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
She just says it so straightforward. And it's like, yep.
Which makes it really funny.
She's hilarious. She just says these offhanded things and you're like, are you okay? Which clearly she's not, and that's the point. It's
okay.
She's not okay. No child should be going through what she's experiencing, and that's the point. She's going through these things, but she's young. How do you process that as a child?
So can you give an example of something?
I mean, I feel like this whole game requires a huge trigger warning.
Okay. Is there anything that's not triggering that you feel comfortable talking about?
No.
Okay.
It's just she'll mention things. So she'll mention her mom likes to drink what she calls juice a lot. You can put two and two together of what her mom's juice might be.
Oh, okay.
It's her mom is heavily drinking alcohol. And so she'll mention that a lot and say things like that. Just her parents' dynamic.
But she talks about it in this innocent, naive kind of way.
Yeah, she'll you'll pass a store that sells alcohol, and she'll be like, "Oh, I've been here before. My mommy took me here and did this, and we got this thing, and you're like, whoa."
So it's this very dark, humorous tone throughout.
Yeah,
but it under the guise of being a cozy game.
Yeah, I mean the cozy part of it. So the cozy aspect to it is just the look of it, the aesthetic of it. It's it's kind of fall, it's set during the fall. You're sometimes you're in the woods, there's leaves and so that's the cozy part of it. It's a very like I said, it's kind of a spooky game, so it's very October-y feeling.
Okay.
Which I feel makes it cozy.
October-y, dark humor.
Yeah. But she's funny, but it's I mean, the game plays with humor too. Like I showed you this bird that they named.
Oh yeah. We cannot repeat that.
Yeah, we can't repeat it. It's very
family-friendly-ish
podcast.
It
is not a game for children, so be wary of that. It is definitely not a game for children.
So what's the core gameplay loop? What are you doing?
It's basically a decision making game, and so every decision you make has a consequence, and you don't really know what that consequence is until maybe later in the game. So for example, early in the game, so you have a narrator, And the narrator, you don't really know whether you should trust the narrator or not, which is also kind of a part of the game. But he says, you're going on this journey, and you're gonna, by the end of we're gonna play a game, Little Misfortune. And if you reach the end of the game, you get eternal happiness. And she's like, oh, I'd love that because my life is sad, and I want that. So like, she's like, I want eternal happiness for me and my mom. So he's like, okay, cool. Well, the first step is, you need to leave the house. So pick a toy. You can bring a toy with you. But the narrator tells you at the very, like, the narrator tells at the very beginning, this is a little misfortune and she will die. Like, she's going to die.
Jeez.
Yeah. And,
what?
So, okay. Yeah. So you as the player are like, okay, she's going to die. How is she going to die? We don't know. Little Misfortune thinks that she's going to reach eternal happiness. So already you're like, is the narrator responsible? Will the narrator be responsible for her death? What is this whole thing with this game? Like, and then the narrator tells you, every choice you make is going to impact,
the ending, or just
impact the journey,
the
basically.
People around you.
So, for example, at the beginning, when it told me, pick a toy, I could choose between a stuffed unicorn or I could choose between a stone. I chose the stone. Later on in the game,
it's already sad.
Oh yeah, the backstory about the stone was depressing.
What? There was a backstory for the stone?
Backstory for the stone.
Okay. All right, what goes on with the stone?
I mean, okay, big trigger warning here. Basically, the dad threw the stone at her.
Oh no.
Yeah, the dad is abusive and threw a stone at her, and she kept it and like threw glitter on it. So she copes by throwing glitter on things to make it sparkly.
Oh my god.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was like, okay, well, this game has told me every choice I make is gonna have a consequence. So I was like, I feel like a stone will be useful, especially if I know, because from what I heard about this game of like, it's a game of choices. I knew that the game was about, this little girl like can die, and like you're kind of responsible for like, I thought what the game was is you're responsible for keeping her alive. So I was like, a stone seems way more useful in keeping this little girl alive than a unicorn. No, it turns out
it's a harbinger for her abuse.
Well, no. So the stone was useful because way later on in the game, after I played a little bit, at some point she goes to the zoo. Well, we need a distraction to get into the zoo because she doesn't have a ticket. The only thing I could come up with was throw the stone at the window, and it worked. I threw the stone at the window. It broke the window. The person comes out to see what happens, and she's able to sneak into the zoo.
So there's a lot of branching paths going on. It's like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah. With
dark humor and a narrator that you can't quite trust.
Yeah. Now, what I don't know is, because what I thought was like every choice, I thought you can make a choice and like you might die from that choice like right then, and then like it could bring you back and be like, do you want to choose the other choice? That's not what the game is. So I don't really know how I'll ever know what the other options would have led me to. Like, I don't know because in the game the narrator says there are no right or wrong choices.
Okay.
So I don't know how things would go differently per se.
It sounds like, design wise, that you're just along for the ride, and the only way that you would know things differently is if you played the game again and just made different choices.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a weird one. It's like really tough content, but then you throw in these like wacky, kind of silly, funny things that just make you like crack up, and you're like, what is this?
Yeah,
what am I looking at?
It's dark humor.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like this little girl is like hilarious, but at the same time you're like, oh no, sweetie, you poor thing.
It's like
it's like an awkward, uncomfortable laugh. You're like really uncomfortable, and you're like, oh no. And it's weird.
Yeah, okay.
It's spooky too. Like there's parts where I'm like afraid to look at it.
So would you recommend it to someone?
I mean, so far, yeah.
Okay.
I'm loving it because it's just like I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
So I'm loving it.
Okay, cool.
And I think, as somebody who doesn't like horror, I think this is the closest thing to horror I could get.
Not Coraline?
Coraline is not scary.
Okay. Anyway. Well, it sounds to me like this eternal happiness is a metaphor for death for this little girl. So
yeah,
that remains to be seen, but who knows?
Yeah. I think there's like a whole added layer though. I think there's like, It's like there's two. You have the narrator who has an objective. Then you have this fox, but at the beginning, very beginning, you see this fox basically talking to like a Grim Reaper looking character. And the Grim Reaper says something to the fox. We don't know what he says. And the fox goes into this like portal that is where Little Miss Fortune lives. So by that interaction, you kind of feel like the fox is bad. But then throughout, you see the fox putting up these signs saying like, hide your children. And you see that there's a bunch of missing children, and there's like these ghost children that Little Miss Fortune can see, but the narrator can't see.
Oh my God.
And so
okay.
I'm like, I feel like the fox is good, and he's trying to like warn people like something shady's going on.
Okay, so there's this like meta level storytelling thing kind of going on.
Yeah, there's like information that I know that me and Little Miss Fortune knows that the narrator doesn't know. There's information that me and the narrator know that Little Miss Fortune doesn't know.
Okay.
So it's like I'm playing two sides. I'm receiving information from all different sides.
Yeah.
And I know stuff that everybody does not know. And I guess that's supposed to kind of guide my decisions.
So it's a game of you know things, other people might not know things, and based on what other people might know and not know, you base your decision based on that?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds really interesting. Anything else that you'd like to say about it?
No, I'm just excited to keep playing. I don't know how long this game is. Because, I mean, technically I reached the end of the game, and the fox stole the eternal happiness and left a note that said, I stole your eternal happiness. And so now what I'm doing is trying to find the fox to figure out what's going on. Interesting.
How long have you been playing it?
Not long at all. I mean, I've only played for a few hours.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Well, it sounds really interesting. I'd be interested in playing that sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Anything else? Anything new that you'd like to update
on? Nope. I feel like I just spoiled that game, honestly.
Do you?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I didn't anticipate some of that stuff happening, so.
Well, I feel like the way that we talked about it was kind of like vague. I think it was confusing.
Oh yeah, it's very confusing. I know. It is confusing.
Like, if it sounds interesting to whoever's listening, go check it out, and you can see all this for yourself. I mean, there are things that you showed me or told me about this morning that you've not talked about at all now. And I'm like, so I'm still intrigued based on everything that you just said. So I don't feel like you spoiled anything.
Okay.
At least for me, the draw of the experience would just be like playing the game, having the experience, not necessarily like the destination, but more so it's about the journey.
Yeah.
With something like that. Yeah.
For sure. I will say I will not be playing this game at night.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I cannot play this game before bed. It'll freak me out.
All right. Well, anything else?
No. I finished that book. Did I talk about that last weekend? I can't even remember.
What book?
It Happened One Summer. I think in the podcast I called it
You didn't
Hook,
even
Line,
know
and
the
Sinker.
name of the book.
Yeah, I called it Hook, Line, and Sinker, which is the second book in that series. But the first book I finished, It Happened One Summer, and I highly recommend. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. You all know I don't give rom-coms 5 stars. I don't know why I do that. I just don't.
Rom-com just can't be that good.
They just can't be that good.
Gotcha.
They're rom-coms. They're not meant to be that good. No offense to like rom-com authors out there. I feel like that's like a rude thing to say, but like.
Well, a 4 out of 5 rom-com for you is
it's
a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
All right.
So
that's fine.
So yeah, so I give it a 4 out of 5. It was great.
I mean, that's like, I can't say most comedy movies are 5 out of 5 because I would have to consider that movie. I would have to be like laughing my butt off every single time I watched it.
Yeah.
Every time.
For years. Like it would have to withstand the test of time.
Right. And that's really hard to do. So I think I understand.
Yeah.
For like a rom-com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like, for something to be a 5 out of 5, it's really got to have something to say. Mm-hmm. And rom-com is inherently got nothing to say other than for your entertainment of like, hey,
just reiterations
you can relate to this, but like,
they're just reiterations of the same
not.
thing over and over.
Yeah,
that you just enjoy. because of that consistency, because you know exactly what to expect.
Yeah, same tropes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not doing anything new.
No.
Then how could it be a 5 out of 5?
Exactly. I'm glad you understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it made me happy because like I posted it was like, not even really a review. It was just like, oh, I got out of not even that I got out of my book slump, but like, oh, I finished this book and I was proud that I did that because I've been in a book slump.
Mm-hmm.
So I posted that and I was like, I really enjoyed this book. And my friend Raven commented and was like, yes, I love your book recommendations. Like, I love when you post a spicy rom-com book, and everyone that you've recommended to me, I've read and like enjoyed. So she didn't say all that in the comment, but
so what?
But
did
I've talked
she
to her.
Say?
She said that she loved my
in
book
person. She said that.
She said she loves my book recommendations. But talking to her before, I always send her spicy rom-coms, and she's told me that she really enjoys when I send her spicy rom-coms because she reads them really fast. And so yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. But in that comment, she did say,
all right.
She loves
your
recommendations.
My recommendations. Yeah.
Which made me happy. Made me want to read more. So yeah.
All right. Well, anything else that you'd like to update on before I provide my own updates?
That's it.
Okay. Well, I've got not much going on. I think last time we recorded, I had already finished Final Fantasy 16, so I talked about that. Pretty happy to be done with that. All of my focus is going into this game called Chained Echoes, which I've talked about a little bit. I've gotten a little bit farther, having played it today, and I got to this point, like the game teases it very early on that you have these like it's an RPG, like it feels kind of like a classic Final Fantasy type of game. But at the beginning of the game, you get access to like these sky armors, which like are basically just almost like Iron Man suits, but with that look like knights, and they're also like really big, like I don't know, maybe like 20 feet tall kind of thing. And I just got access to that. I'm like 14 hours or something into this game, and I just got access to like it's always just been, characters feet on the ground, fighting people like a normal, like classic JRPG would be. But now it's like I've got access to these sky armors, and it not just impacts the battle system and the fights that I like, how the fights are conducted when I'm, in battle against somebody, but it also impacts like where I'm able to maneuver in the game's world, which I really like. It's kind of, if you've played like a classic Pokemon game, they have these things called HMs, like Surf or Fly or Cut. Like they're moves in Pokemon that once you get access to them, you can teach them to your Pokemon, and then you can like surf on the water, or you can like, cut down trees that open up new areas. So I really like that the designers of this game saw the opportunity with these like sky armors to do something really cool, not just like change up how the combat system works when you have a sky armor on, but also like they can fly, and you can now like navigate to places that you maybe have already been to, but find new things there because you've got just newer gameplay mechanics, or newer what's the word, navigation abilities, you can maneuver through the world in a different way than you could before, and you can find new stuff. And I love it when games do that. And yeah, so I'm really excited on this game right now. There's another RPG like that's kind of pixel style that comes out in a few days called Sea of Stars, which I've been really excited about. It looks really cool, but I don't want to like play two of these at the same time, so I'm just focused on Chained Echoes, and then I'll probably put all my focus into Sea of Stars after that. And then the entire month of October is going to be like too many games to possibly play. It's like Alan Wake 2 comes out, Super Mario Brothers Wonder comes out, Spider-Man 2 comes out, the Batman Arkham trilogy comes out for the Switch, which I'm really excited for because I love those games. The Metal Gear Solid like Volume 1 collection, Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1.
Snake Plissken?
Yeah, Snake Plissken. Of Metal Gear Solids 1, 2, and 3. That comes out at the end of the month. Detective Pikachu comes out on the Switch, which I'm kind of curious about. Mm-hmm. So it's like, did I just name like 6 things?
That's a lot.
2 of those things are a collection of 3 games. So that's like 10 games. That's a lot for
impossible.
1 month. It is impossible. I mean, there's no way I'm going to play all of those. Mm-hmm. Like, no way. I mean, some of them like Super Mario Brothers Wonder or Detective Pikachu, I imagine those are going to be like under 10 hours. Something like Batman, I know those take like 10 hours. And then Metal Gear Solid, you could probably finish those in like 5 to 10 hours. But then like Alan Wake 2 or Spider-Man 2, those could be anywhere in like the, 15 to 20 hour range. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad at least these games are not like games that would exceed 20 hours, because if a game is going to exceed 20 hours, I really got to, be into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to play at least some of those. Mm-hmm. We'll see. See what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much all that's going on the video game front. This weekend, we did a puzzle hunt in our local town, which was really fun. It was the second annual one that was hosted by the radio station. They turned the whole town into just like a big escape room, really. Mm-hmm. They gave us they gave us like a map, and then they gave us 5 different like coordinates on the map, and we had to basically follow each of those until we like got to some kind of final hint, and we had to collect all 5 of those hints and then come back to the starting area like 3 years later.
3 years later.
Yeah, it's really, they're playing the long game on this one.
We've been working on this for 3 years, y'all.
Yeah. No, we come back 3 hours later, and then they gave like the final hint, and and we had to, you had to call phone numbers.
Yeah.
You really had to piece it together. It was really cool.
Yeah, it gave me mad respect for people who create puzzles. I was just, the whole time, I was just like,
dissectologists.
But is that like people who create puzzles or people who just like really enjoy puzzles?
Yeah.
Like people who create puzzles, like for like the people who created this puzzle in particular, I'm like, it's one thing to, develop an escape room. There's one, well, depending on, I guess, the escape room that you're establishing, it's typically just like one room.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work to make an escape room, but in this case, it was
a whole
you had to get the community on board.
Yeah, it was blocks and blocks that were all tied together, different, locations, different, restaurants and stuff like that were all kind of tied in with things.
Yeah.
And, like the public library, things like that. And it's like, to have all of that kind of mapped out and have like the coordinates of all the streets and all the blocks, and
there were all these people at these different stations that were involved with the event, and they had to have very specific instructions. They were basically told, like, every person that you talk to, they'd be like, I don't know what it means, I just know what I've been told to do.
Right.
And they had to follow their instructions to a T to make it all work. And it did. It was really impressive.
There's a movie theater, and there was like a poster specifically for this puzzle. Like,
they made up a fake movie.
Fake movie.
We had to, oh my gosh, we had to follow these. We found these like missing dog posters, or they were called found dog posters, which I guess is better than doing a missing dog.
Well, there was one missing dog.
Oh, that's right. But that wasn't like a publicly put up poster. That was like people who were involved with the event being like, oh, we're missing our dog.
Yeah.
So they would give you that, and then you'd have a phone number on the dog poster, and you'd call that, and it would tell you like, oh, the dog like got some ice cream and ran away, and there's an ice cream symbol on your map, so you gotta go to the ice cream symbol.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of different symbols, so some of these symbols are, some might be something, and some might not be something at all.
Yeah.
So you gotta follow up on those, and then you kind of like, you piece together another phone number, and then we called that phone number, and it was like, oh, thanks for calling Movie Phone. The show times for Barbie are this. The show times for Oppenheimer are this. And the show times for the reunion are beep. and it just cut off. So then we had to walk around the corner to the movie theater, and we saw a poster for this fake movie that said the movie was going to be taking place at like
And it was like a legit poster.
It was like a legit poster, like
in
like
one of the
on
little
one of those
casings.
in one of those case things for
Yeah.
the movie theater, and it said, you know, the movie's going to be at like 7:56 p.m. or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, we had a list of like numbers, and 756 was one of them, and that gave us the hint there. It was really well made. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
WTJU 91.1 FM.
It was well made.
Well done.
And very difficult. Like, really, it was a hard puzzle.
It was very hard
hard puzzle. Yeah. Which, like, I mean, I appreciate, because, like, you don't want an easy puzzle, and then you're like, well, this was kind of lame. Like, it was too easy.
Right.
You want something that's going to challenge you, but it wasn't too challenging to where, like, you know, everyone's sitting there like, no one can figure this out. Like, why? Like, no one's going to win. Like, people were able to win and everything like that. And everyone was pretty close to winning, I think. So, yeah, I thought they did a great job.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah.
Took up like 5 or 6 hours of our day.
Yeah.
On a Saturday.
We had like a moment to grab a beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just got to kind of learn a little bit more about the local community and meet more people, and it was overall just a great time.
And so many people showed up.
Yeah.
I was so surprised at how many people were participating. Like,
Yeah.
It felt like it was like the whole city was participating.
Right.
and
we were still able to find parking
Yeah.
without it being a hassle.
Yeah.
So overall, like, great time.
It was.
10 out of 10 way to spend your Saturday.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have to do it next year.
For sure.
Yep.
Well, that's all the updates I've got.
Nice.
Want to go ahead and get into the picks?
Sounds good.
All right. You are talking about my pick from last week first, so go ahead.
Let me sit up because my arm's falling asleep. All right. So last week I was assigned a movie called The New Guy, which came out in 2002. And so
That came out in 2001.
Oh goodness, I'm always like a year off in my
Yeah.
years. I just look it up and they always go. Okay, well 2001. I just look it up and then they give me the year, and it's always wrong.
Sometimes it's like premiered at a film festival in 2001, but then it came out in theaters in February of 2002. So, but
Oh my gosh. Okay.
yeah,
Well, 2001.
early 2000s movie.
Yes.
2002. You were right. I was wrong.
All right then.
My bad.
Okay. So this movie follows a guy named Dizzy Harrison, who is played by DJ Qualls. And he is a nerd who is going into his senior year of high school, and he hopes that this is the year he's no longer going to get bullied. Unfortunately, this is not the case, and he immediately gets like humiliated on the first day of school, and it's kind of like the laughing stock of the school, as he has been for like the past few years.
His whole life.
Yeah, his whole life. Yeah. And so because of this incident, he creates a plan, and he
goes to jail at one
yes,
point.
he goes to jail. I'm going to take that part out for just a moment. I'll come back to it. But because of this whole experience, he concocts this plan to get expelled from school and transfer to a new school under the guise of like a new, cooler persona. And he kind of constructs this persona with the help of some prison inmates. Now, how did he end up meeting prison inmates? Basically, when he got humiliated at school, they sent him to the like nurse's office. She prescribed him some medication for Tourette's, which like makes no sense. And like that's the point, is like she doesn't know what she's doing.
She has no idea what she's doing.
Yeah, so she prescribed him some medication. It made him all like loopy. He went to the mall. He like basically took over this like sermon that was happening, got in trouble, and they threw him in jail. And so he became friends with a guy in the prison, and the guy was like, oh yeah, I can help you, like, make people afraid of you, and like show these bullies, like, he's like, prison's basically just high school, like, I'll help you, show the bullies who's boss, and yada yada. So that's how he ends up kind of getting mentored by these guys at the prison. So he successfully gets expelled from school after a few attempts. Takes him a few attempts. And he transfers to a new school. So at the new school, he becomes super popular. So his plan works. He creates his persona. I think his name is Gil. Like that's what he calls
goes
himself.
from being like Dizzy Gillespie Harrison, and then he becomes Gil Harris.
Yeah. So he does become super popular.
Like blonde, spiky hair.
Yeah. But this comes at a cost, as you can imagine, of losing his old friends. So he's no longer like really associating with them anymore because now like the popular girls, the cheerleaders are into him, one of which is Eliza Dushku, who he really likes. She's starting to hang out with him, so he's like not really hanging out with his friends anymore. And he begins to realize that people may not like him for who he is. Like Gil, this persona he's created, isn't really who he is. And so he's like, okay, well, if I end up telling the truth to the school, you know, like, will they accept me? And so, yeah, basically at the end of the movie, he kind of has to come clean because a football player or one of his old bullies plays Dizzy or Gil's new team, or like his new high school
his new
team.
school's football team.
Team recognizes him and is like, what the heck? Like, that dude's a nerd. And like, now he's like this popular guy and like everyone loves him. Like, he's lying to you all. And so the kind of bully at Dizzy's new school is no longer like, no one messes with him because of like,
he's no longer the king.
Yeah, he's no longer the king. And so he's like, what do you know, to the other guy? And so they concoct a plan to expose Gil / Dizzy. And so they show that. And so then the school is like making fun of Gil / Dizzy now.
Yeah, they
first.
they reveal it to both high schools.
Yeah. And so he's like, wow, like no one accepts me now that they know the truth. That sucks. And then Eliza Dushku is like, oh, you lied to me. That sucks. And so his old friends, his old friends take him back and they're like, we love you. That's all that matters. But then eventually Eliza Dushku comes around and is like, you know what?
And by eventually, you mean like 2
seconds later. Yeah. 2 seconds later. She's like, you know what? I also like was being fake because I used to, I pretended to like be blah, blah, blah to be popular. I get it. And then all the other students are like, we get it too. And then all is well.
Yeah. And in his journey to stardom of becoming like the most popular guy at his new school, he like starts to blur the boundaries between all of the cliques. Like he kind of, all the bullies were picking on like, the band kids or something. But then he ends up making friends with the band kids and also making friends with the football players. And so he just kind of blurs the lines. And then it's like everybody's able to become friends.
Yeah, everyone respects everyone. And there's no like bullying.
It's like, wow.
Yeah. So silly. So my thoughts about this movie. Yeah, this movie's super silly. Yeah. Like it's super simple and it's dumb. But it's surprisingly still enjoyable. Like I had a good time watching it. I thought it was cute. Dizzy is like such a charming character, and I think had this been casted with anybody else, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much.
Right, it wouldn't have worked as well.
Yeah, but like DJ Qualls I think was a perfect was perfectly casted in this role because he's just like the way he looks. He's like this like scrawny like kid. I don't know how old he was at the time of like. I don't know. But he like looks like the scrawny kid, and like he just like seems like such a sweetheart. And
he was 23 probably when they filmed.
Okay, and like seeing him try to like take on this cool persona, it's like super funny to watch, and it's so like he's so awkward and like gangly and so like seeing him try to like do all these things is like just really funny, and like it somehow works out for him and you're just like, what?
It was interesting to watch as an adult because I was very young when I first saw this movie. I would have been like 8 years old at the youngest. And I remember watching this movie and thinking that when he goes from being Dizzy, the nerd, to like Gil, the cool guy, it was like a seamless transition for me. I was like, whoa, he's like
so
super
cool.
cool. Everything he does is cool. And then we watch it now, and I'm like, oh, like even Gil, he like doesn't know
cool
how to be
all.
cool. Yeah.
You're just like watching this dude like be weird.
yeah, like he's trying to be cool, but ultimately he's weird. But because he's like mysterious, then like he ends up doing cool stuff completely on accident.
Yeah.
Like
it's like he's just confident, and because he's confident now, it comes off as cool. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, no, it's charming. Like
it's a silly teen comedy movie from the early 2000s. Like it's the epitome of that.
Oh, for sure. Which speaking of that as well, like what did kind of surprise me, because it's early 2000s, early 2000s humor is so problematic. Like usually like anytime we go back and we watch these early 2000s movies, you're just sitting there like, this is so cringe. Like, oh no, like all the stuff they're saying, which like, not to say that this movie doesn't have those moments. It definitely does. However, it kind of surprised me. Like, I feel like it was a little bit more, I think I expected more cringe than I actually felt watching this movie.
I was like pleasantly surprised to find that there was like this core message in the movie where it was like, we don't have to fall into these cliques, and we don't have to like bully people because they're different from us. Like we could all be friends, even though it's portrayed in this like simple teen comedy movie kind of way. It's still like, I was happy for the characters, for the little high school universe that they created for themselves. Like, oh, how that's sweet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like to say about it?
No, that's really all I have.
All right. So I've got some little facts. Not that many facts. Really, like not that many at all. So for the football scenes, his new high school, their football team supposedly sucks, and then suddenly they go to the state championships and go against his old high school, and the only reason that his football team was able to be successful was because he like motivated all of them to become confident, because they hadn't won a game in like 5 years or something. And then there's this like reference to, he does this whole performance as like an army general that is apparently a reference to a movie called Patton. And because he tells everybody like, yeah, we're going to win, we're going to try hard, then they start winning and they start trying hard. And then at the end, when they're going to the state championships, it's like the whole town comes together, and it's like this Braveheart sequence. So yeah, just wanted to, I guess, call attention to those references, Patton and Braveheart. So this movie is full of tons of cameos. Which are really random, and I couldn't figure out what the through line was. I mean, there is a through line. I couldn't figure out like why though. So okay, well, there. Some of these cameos include Vanilla Ice, Tommy Lee from Motley Crue, Gene Simmons from Kiss, Tony Hawk, David Hasselhoff, and apparently Henry Rollins from the band Black Flag. He played the warden in the movie. And then there's also a bunch of rappers in the movie. I didn't know any of them, so I didn't list their names out in my notes. But
Jermaine Dupri was in it, I saw.
Oh, Jermaine Dupri. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then there's like Jerry O'Connell is also in this movie. And he had already been in like Scream 2 at that point. This is like 5 years or so after Scream 2. So like he didn't need to be in this movie, probably. And he's in this movie with his brother Charlie O'Connell, who looks exactly like him. So it's like, what? There's two of them? And apparently they improvised, like they were just in one little party scene, but they just improvised most of it. Like they climbed the swings at one point, and they weren't instructed to do that. They just did that.
Honestly, that was the best part of the movie, because I was like, there's two of him? I was like, who's a brother? Oh my gosh.
It's like, it's really funny because they go to this high school party and there's like ramps out front and Tony Hawk's doing tricks. And one guy's like, like the girl who owns this house like got Tony Hawk for her party. This is so awesome. And it's like, what?
It's like, this movie is like a time capsule.
Right.
It's like, put the most early 2000s things in here.
Right.
Boom.
Like Tony Hawk had already had the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games coming out. He'd already done the 900. Like what? Okay, yeah, throw him in.
Yeah.
So with there being like Henry Rollins, Vanilla Ice, Gene Simmons, and all these rappers, it's like, okay, there's a through line of like musical artists. But I don't know why. It's like musical artists, and then you got Tony Hawk, which, like, I don't know. I think about the Tony Hawk games, and the soundtracks to those games, and they're very like of the time, like late '90s, 2000s pop punk kind of stuff.
And I feel like skating culture and hip hop culture a lot of times go hand in hand,
right?
Yeah.
So that's just going on.
I don't know. Maybe was
David
the director
Hasselhoff though. He came out of nowhere.
I know, but I don't know. I mean, he's on Baywatch, right?
He was on Baywatch.
I mean, and
Pamela
then Tommy
Anderson
Lee
was on Baywatch,
Anderson.
and she was married to Tommy Lee.
All right, there's your through line.
Tommy Lee and David Hasselhoff knew each other. Tony Hawk knew people from licensing
they all
their
know
music.
each other. They're all connected. It's all Hollywood. It's
That's
all
true.
The entertainment biz.
That's true. They were just like, you want to be in this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
They all know each other.
All right, well, let's see. Other facts that I have is that the high school that they filmed at for his new school, it had just opened like in real life, so it only had 9th and 10th graders attending the school.
Wow.
Which is why they were able to film there, because a lot of it wasn't really like populated with students, but none of those students could be extras in the movie because they weren't 18 yet.
Yeah.
So a lot of faculty at that high school got to be extras in the movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
They also had replaced the school's marquee in the front of the high school to be like the film's high school name. So that led to a lot of confusion with parents in school buses dropping off the kids.
Yeah. I feel like, what?
Right. Apparently there is an uncensored version of this movie, and in that version of the movie, Miss Pierce, the nurse that like prescribes him the medication for Tourette's, she like has a whole like unspoken relationship with his dad.
Yeah.
In this movie, in this cut of the movie, it's like they spend a lot of time together, and it's not really clear like what's up.
Yeah.
But apparently, in the uncensored version of the movie, she becomes his stepmom by the end of the movie.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
What is this movie rated?
It's PG-13.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, because I was like, this movie is pretty tame.
I mean, by the uncensored version, I mean like the director's cut.
Okay.
You know, it's like there was some other changes, but they weren't really that interesting. But this,
Okay.
I guess, like the other change would have been that his mom like had divorced his dad when he was young.
Yeah.
But like that's whatever, you know. But yeah, the school nurse becomes his stepmom by the end of the movie.
Okay. I imagine this movie so differently because of the movie poster, I thought this was more of like a raunchy comedy.
Right.
And so like that's why I was like, oh, this movie kind of surprised me. It was pretty tame. Like
it
was
is
like,
very tame. Yeah.
I was like, it really was like, it's kind of wholesome, you know?
Yeah.
And so like,
I like the whole crazy eyes thing. That's so.
You've been doing it all week.
I know.
It's like cracking me up.
Eddie Griffin plays a character named Luther. He's one of the inmates at the prison, and he's the one that like primarily mentors Dizzy to become, you know, this new persona. And so he is known at his prison for doing like the crazy eyes at people, which every time he does it to people, there's like this whiplash sound. And
like,
yeah, he's like, and so Dizzy starts doing it to people at the new school, and it like does the whiplash sound too.
And everyone just like backs up.
Everybody's like, whoa, when he does it every time, no matter what.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, yeah.
It's so silly.
Like and even when the two bullies reveal to both high schools at the homecoming dance that like he's not who he said he was, then like the prisoners from the prison that he was at, like, basically come and like save him and take down the bullies and back him up and stuff. And it's like, it's just one of those movie logic things where it's like, why is he able to
hang out at the
prison, come and go, and hang out with the inmates, and then the warden is able to bring some of the inmates out of the prison to come back him up? It's like, that is not the American prison system that I know.
Yeah, anything goes. They just do whatever.
Yeah. So, as far as the film's reception, it has what would you guess it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
Probably like, it's out of 100%, right?
Yeah.
Probably like 20.
7.
Oh.
Just 7, single digit.
Yeah. I was like, I've literally never heard of this movie in my life, so like, I'm sure it was like, people were like, "What is this?"
Well, the budget was the budget was about $13 million, and it grossed $30 million. So,
wow,
made its money.
Yeah. There you go.
Those are all the facts that I had.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, it was fun.
Yeah, I watched this movie so many times.
Yeah. Because
we owned it on DVD. And I just thought it was funny when I was like, I don't know, in second or third grade.
Yeah.
And and I had not watched it since.
Yeah.
And I remembered everything, like Tony Hawk's going to be in this, the crazy eyes, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So glad we watched it.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that. It was a good morning watch.
Yeah, we watched it early in the morning.
Yeah. Cool. Well, ready to move on to some not so fun.
Yeah.
things.
So my assignment for this week was Law Abiding Citizen. It's a movie that came out in, was it 2010?
Ooh, let me double check. 2009, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Law Abiding Citizen.
2009.
2009. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, get your years straight.
Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. I am the problem.
You are the problem. Making me think I'm crazy. Gaslighting me.
Yeah, my bad. It is not my intention to gaslight. So, Law Abiding Citizen is a movie that came out in 2009. It stars Gerard Butler and Jamie Foxx. Gerard Butler's character is a husband and father, and one day his wife and daughter are killed by some home invaders. And one of these invaders, there's 2 home invaders. One of them is worse than the other, but the one that's worse than the other testifies against the not as bad one. And because he does that, the not that bad one gets put on death row, and the super bad one basically gets 5 years for third-degree murder. He only ends up serving 3. And Gerard Butler is not happy about that. Mm-hmm. And his lawyer, Jamie Foxx, insists, like, hey, this was the most effective way that we could take these guys down, given the options that we have in the justice system. It's either they get off scot-free and we lose the case, or we take this deal and this is what happens. Mm-hmm. And so Gerard Butler, not so happy about this. Skip ahead 10 years later, whoa. So the guy that got put on death row is now going to be executed, but what was supposed to be a simple execution ends up being super duper intense because the way that they executed him was through the use of 3 different chemicals that are supposed to basically make it like he falls asleep and he dies. But by the time he injects the 3rd chemical, he kind of like just has this horrible reaction and just like really seems to suffer in his final moments. So they're like, what the heck? That was not supposed to happen. So the police are like, well, maybe let's go check on the other guy who was involved with this guy's case.
Well, it wasn't just like, let's go check on the other guy.
Well, they were like, who has motive?
They were like, someone tampered with the stuff, and on the back of one of the chemicals on the thing, it had something that the other guy said.
Oh, it said like the thing about fate. Yeah, you can't fight fate.
So they were like, well, the only person who said, like, we've heard say this is that other guy, so maybe he did it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the police are like, we need to go check on the worst of the 2 guys that's been running free.
His name is Darby.
Darby. Yeah, they need to go check on Darby, who's been, free for the last 7 years. So Darby is just chilling at home. He gets a phone call from a mysterious voice that basically tells him, hey, police are coming. You need to get out of there. And he runs off. He starts shooting at the cops like an idiot. But he is told by the voice, there's a police car. The voice says, I've already tased the officer that's in that police car, so you can get in the car and you can take off in the car like with the officer in it. And it turns out that the officer, once they drive off, Darby and this police officer that he's basically taking hostage, they drive off, they're somewhere safe. Turns out the officer was actually the guy on the phone, and both of them are actually Gerard Butler. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. And he is out for revenge on this guy who basically murdered his family. So he basically kidnaps that guy, then takes him to a warehouse that he owns and tortures the guy, and then leaves him there. And then knowing that the cops are going to find it and suspect him because he owns the place and he has the motive to do it, he surrenders to the cops. Now, I'm spoiling this whole movie, by the way.
I mean, it's pretty old at this point.
Yeah. Just for the listener, in case they were wondering if I was going to spoil this or not, I'm doing the whole movie. So once he's been detained, Jamie Foxx is trying to basically get a confession out of him. They're like, we've got nothing on him. We need a confession, which I feel like they have quite a bit on him.
Just because he owns the building.
I get it.
Doesn't mean that is enough evidence.
All right. Well, anyway, Jamie Foxx is trying to convict him, but Gerard Butler's being all difficult. He's saying, you can't prove anything. I'm not convictable based on the things that I've said and the information that you have. It doesn't matter what I can say or whatever, what you think. It matters what you can prove in court, which is what Jamie Foxx had told him 10 years prior. So he's rubbing that in Jamie Foxx's face. So even though he is in custody, now it's everybody that was involved with the trial 10 years prior of the two guys that murdered his family are now, he's basically punishing them, but he is still in prison. And by punish, I mean somebody will be found buried alive, or the judge of the case answers her phone and it blows up in her face, and they're like, oh my god, we know he's the one that basically set all this stuff up to get these people killed, but he's in prison currently. He's currently under arrest before we can fully convict him. So he's like, hey, I was right here. I don't know what you're talking about. So people just start dying in these really crazy ways that can't exactly be connected to him because he's in jail. And so it's did he really just plan really well? What the heck's going on? So then at some point, Jamie Foxx and his boss meet up with this guy who he works in the government, or at least used to work in the government with Gerard Butler back in the day. And it turns out Gerard Butler is this guy that used to work for the Department of Defense. He tinkers with machines. And every time the Department of Defense needed some special way to assassinate somebody or something, or take down these people that are unkillable and make it look like the U.S. didn't do it, I guess.
It's basically when they need somebody to die, but they don't want to be in the room. Right. They need it to no one's there. Right. He's the guy to call.
Gerard Butler is the guy. And it's that's when we find out who he actually is and why he's able to pull all of this stuff off. So they find the lawyer, the phone blows up, yada yada. A bunch of the lawyers from the law firm that Jamie Foxx works at, they get in their cars. All the cars start blowing up, and it's oh my god. It all culminates in him trying to take out the mayor of Philadelphia, played by Viola Davis. And it turns out that he's able to plant all of this stuff despite being in custody because he got himself put into solitary confinement, and he had set it up so that he bought the warehouse that's next to the prison, dug a hole, and then dug a tunnel and tunneled up to all of the cells that are in solitary confinement and set it up so that if he ended up in solitary confinement, which he did so very much intentionally, that he could get out of whatever solitary confinement cell that he got put into. So, which is nuts, by the way. That's wild. There's no way. But
I'm like, that tunnel system probably existed, but he probably found the tunnel system.
I don't know.
Because there's no way he himself could have
dug all of that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess over the 10 years, maybe. They should have
been able to find out.
They would have found him. So I feel like there's no way he could have constructed all that. I feel like.
I'm pretty sure he did, because otherwise it makes no sense. We are supposed to believe that this man put all of this together. Otherwise, the prison,
I guess.
The prison would know, hey, there's all these ways out of
the prison.
Solitary confinement through this tunnel to this warehouse right next door. So,
that's true.
So that's like movie logic. We just have to believe that this man over the course of 10 years
did all that.
Did all this by himself.
Wow.
So it culminates in he leaves this napalm bomb in a briefcase underneath where the mayor and all the other important people of the city are going to be holding some big meeting, and he is trying to take down the system that failed him. And so he leaves the napalm bomb a floor under where they're all going to meet. Jamie Foxx and his associates find that bomb, and when Gerard Butler goes back to his cell to be all it wasn't me, Jamie Foxx is there to meet him with the bomb, and he locks him into the cell, and he lets the bomb detonate, and Gerard Butler dies, and all the killing stops, and everybody's fine because now he's dead. And the end. That's it.
It's how did Jamie Foxx get back there before?
Right. How did he get back? Right. I was thinking about that when I was writing my summary for the movie. I'm he got out of jail, planted the bomb, and then dipped. And then Jamie Foxx and friends find the bomb, and they're all right, let's go back to his cell that he's on the way to.
But then they discussed for a minute because they were what kind of bomb is this? How long do we have? Right. Where is he?
They got back before him, and then blew him up, and it's what?
It's okay, we don't ask questions.
Right. So that's basically the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's called Law Abiding Citizen because he's I'm a law abiding citizen, I'm in jail, you can't pin these things on me. Mm-hmm. So if you approach this movie with any shred of logic, it really does fall apart. It wants you to stay within the confines of what it's telling you within this movie logic space. And if you go outside of that at all, it just really starts to make no sense. You could kind of pick it apart really easily. Even the fact that this home invasion that happened to him and his family was random, and he just so happened to be this mastermind assassin guy. It's what happens when somebody invades the home of an assassin? I guess John Wick. And he just starts pulling off these impossible feats of murder. Mm-hmm. But still though, despite all of that, mm-hmm. and that being I don't know, the central gimmick of the whole movie, mm-hmm. and it not working super well, it's still a very entertaining movie. Yeah. I did kind of expect it to be a little better. Most people mm-hmm. I talked to were oh yeah, Law Abiding Citizen is great. And I'm oh, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. But so I was a little surprised at how easily not believable this movie could be.
I think where the greatness shines for this movie is not necessarily the believability of what he's doing. I think for me, what makes this movie great is the morality behind it all. Because with Gerard,
the commentary on the justice
exactly
system.
With Gerard, you're I understand why he feels this way. I understand our justice system is so broken. It sucks that these things happened to his family, and that was the outcome, and you know, this horrible person only got to walk free after 3 years. Like, that is terrible. Now, he should not just be going around murdering folks like the way that he did.
He blames everybody that works within the justice system for.
But it's not even that it's not that he's. Well,
like he decides
he does blame the people who like work directly with the case. But when he starts to.
But he decides that like they need to die because of that.
Well. So yeah, so like obviously he kills the people who like actually caused harm to his family. Then he like starts to harm the people who were working with the case, like the judge and stuff like that. But what I get from it is like it's not necessarily that he's saying they deserve to die because of the outcome of it. It's more of like, I'm making a statement. Yeah. I'm doing this big thing in order to get everyone's attention of like change the system. So to me, it's not necessarily him being guided, because like at some point Jamie Foxx is like, you're doing like vengeance. This is about vengeance, and he's like, no, it's not about
vengeance. Yeah, he's like, you think this is about vengeance?
I know. He's like, it's
how
not
crazy is that of an idea to think that it's vengeance? Of course, it's vengeance.
Like part of it, yes, but like I think his motivation is not, I'm going to kill you because of like my family's dead. It's like, I'm going to make this statement. The only way to make the statement is if you die, because basically, no one's going to care unless people are dying.
Oh, okay. I guess he's also saying like, all of you are dying and it's obvious that it's me, but because I'm a law-abiding citizen, technically in the face of the law,
right?
Then there's got to be something wrong with the system.
Exactly. It's the system, you know? Like, this is just me making an example of
how the system's broken.
Exactly. So I feel like that is what makes this a really good movie.
All right. I see that, and that makes sense. I will say the system wins in the end.
Yes, because he ends up dying.
And no changes get made to the system. It's not like they don't have a final scene where it's like the Gerard Butler Act just got passed and we fixed the justice system. It's like, you know,
that's the downer, because it's been a really long time since I've seen this movie. So when it did end, I was like, well, dang, all that was for nothing,
right?
But I don't know. I guess maybe Jamie Foxx's life was changed, and I don't know, he can pass a law that help pass a law that changes things. I don't know.
Sure.
Who knows? But yeah. So I don't really know I don't even know where the movie would go from there, honestly, after all that mess happened. But
it just needed a little something. Like once they kill Gerard Butler, the movie ends within a minute.
Yeah, it kind of goes off the rails, and there's no kind of reeling it back in and tying a bow on it. It's just kind of like that escalated.
Roll the credits.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I feel you on that.
Yeah. Well, then we finished that depressing movie and watched the last 30 minutes of The Flash afterwards. That made it a little easier to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Which, The Flash, by the way,
Well, you can save that for another.
Yeah, I'm not here to talk about that. But anyway. Time. Yeah, Law-Abiding Citizen. I don't have any other notes on this movie.
Okay.
So hit me with the facts.
I really don't have too many facts. So Gerard Butler was a producer on this movie.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. He was originally going to play Nick, who is the lawyer that Jamie Foxx plays, and Jamie Foxx was originally going to play Clyde. But either through the suggestion of Gerard Butler or through the suggestion of Jamie Foxx, it's unclear who suggested what first. It ended up getting switched, as we see in the film. Gerard Butler also stated in an interview that there's a scene where he gets to eat a steak dinner while he's in prison with his cellmate. And he unfortunately uses a bone from that steak and murders his cellmate.
Yeah.
And it's pretty brutal.
That's the event that gets him put into solitary confinement.
So that scene, originally the MPAA gave the film a rating of NC-17 because of that scene.
Really?
Yes, because I guess it was just like really brutal.
Oh. I mean, even in the rated R version, it was pretty brutal.
Yeah. So what we saw is an edited version with less blood.
Oh. There was so much blood.
There
in
was
that
so
scene.
much.
Like, the walls were painted.
He was painted. He's covered in it.
Yeah.
And he literally is like, I need a shower, warden. Like, it's a lot. So we saw a less bloody version of it.
Wow. Okay.
Which is wild.
That is wild.
I'm like, how are they not drowning? Like, oh my gosh. So I feel like this movie makes a lot of Greek mythology reference or like Greek references. So I only wrote down one, but there's a few others. But the security guard, so there's a scene where this is when Gerard Butler's character is sneaking into the city hall to plant that bomb under, Viola Davis and colleagues meeting. And so he's dressed up as like a janitor. And so the company that he like is working for, that he has like clothes for, is named he's greeted as with a name Nomos. Like
Nomos,
the security guards are like, hey, Nomos. And so that is Greek for law, which just like adds to, the whole underlying story of like what this movie's about the law and like
lame.
Yeah. Justice, all
Nomos
of that. Nomos
law.
Yeah.
Ooh, whoa.
What is this? Oh, sorry. There was a piece of fuzz.
I
thought it was a bug.
That is a weak reference. I thought you were gonna give me like, how the Warriors was about this like French war story or like ancient French story.
I'm sorry.
Or ancient Greek story. I don't know why I'm saying French. But like how like the Warriors was actually an adaptation of like some story. I thought you were gonna say that. You're just telling me that
the word Greek word.
The Greek word for law is nomos.
There's also like
that was his alibi.
There's also some part in the movie where he's like, I don't quite remember this fact, but I think he's like tinkering with something and it has like wings on it, and it's like a reference to what is his name? Daedalus,
sure,
who like created the wings for Icarus, and it's like when Icarus flew too close to the sun, and then it's like a reference to like in this movie his own creation ends up destroying him and like all that.
They're trying.
Yeah,
they're trying.
Anyway,
I see it. I get it.
Anyway. You mentioned this movie kind of ending abruptly and there was no real,
resolution.
No real resolution. Well, perhaps we get one because apparently there's a Law-Abiding Citizen 2 in the works.
Why? What are you talking about? Who's going to be in it? Is it going to be like Jamie Foxx gets back at the system?
Yeah, I don't know. I did not find... Well, I didn't look too hard, but I didn't find any details on what the story is. It's apparently supposed to be produced by Gerard Butler again. I don't know. This was the articles that
his twin brother.
The articles that mentioned that there was a number 2, a sequel in the making, came out in 2022. So I don't know where they're at with it.
Oh wow, okay, it's
pretty recent. So I don't know where they're at with it, but apparently, and I don't know if it's going to be like a continuation of this story or if it's going to be something completely different.
Somebody else gets failed by the system.
I mean, everybody's getting failed by the system, honestly.
Well, it's just a documentary of real life.
I mean, honestly, go watch the 13. There we go.
Goodness.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that sounds like a direct to DVD kind of sequel. TBH.
Do they make direct to DVD? Does anyone have DVDs anymore?
No, it's all just direct to streaming now.
Direct to streaming.
Which I guess has made all movies a little bit better. But there are still like, I've seen Samuel L. Jackson and like Bruce Willis in some pretty bad direct to DVD movies in the last, I don't know, 10 years.
They get a pass. Sam Jackson has been in like 70-something movies.
Like Sharknado. Those are all,
First of all, those are Oscar-winning movies.
Or like Death Race. Death Race 1 had Jason Statham in it and was like a theatrical movie. And then there's like, they got Death Race 2, 3, and 4.
I don't even know what those are.
Yeah, it's like real life Mario Kart, but with prisoners.
What?
And it's dangerous.
How does that man have a career? Isn't he in the Meg?
Jason Statham?
Yeah.
Meg 2. That got a theatrical release, believe it or not. Yeah.
Is he okay?
Yeah, I think he's doing just plenty fine. He's been doing Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to, like, make it sound better?
He's making money is my point. Like, he's in 2 blockbusters this year.
Yeah.
Making money. He's making very, very high billing. He's making top billing for Meg 2.
If that's what makes him happy.
I mean, yeah, he's been typecast at this point into a very specific type of role. He just plays the transporter, but in different situations.
I've never seen The Transporter.
I haven't either, but I know what it is, you know.
All right. I mean, no judgment to Jason Statham. Do you? I mean, he's doing better than me.
Yeah. Don't badmouth that man.
Anyway, shall we pick our assignments for next week?
Yeah. Now I'm like, I should give you Death Race.
Oh, no.
It's on my list, but no, maybe not this week.
Yeah.
So, do you want to sign or shall I'll just go for it. I'm already talking. I'm going to assign you. I don't really have a reason. I just wrote this down a while ago.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assign you A Beautiful Mind.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it stars Russell Crowe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's his name, Russell Crowe. I know my actors pretty well, and I've just kind of been forgetting so many people. Yeah, Russell Crowe. It won Best Picture in like 2000 or 2001. And Gladiator also came out like a year or two prior to it, or maybe give or take, maybe after. Also starring Russell Crowe, and that also won Best Picture. So,
wow.
Yeah. But no, we're not here to do Gladiator. Have you seen Gladiator?
No.
Oh. No, we're doing A Beautiful Mind. And I think you'll enjoy it. Okay. I hope it holds up, but it's an interesting movie.
Okay, cool. All right. So I have a few questions for you. So I want to give you a movie that's based on a true story.
Okay.
The first question I have for you is...
A Beautiful Mind is also based on a true story.
Oh, nice. Look, we got a little theme going.
Yeah.
So first question I have for you is, do you want a movie based on a true story that is bad and kind of comical? Or do you want one that is like a pretty good movie?
I mean, mine's a pretty good movie.
Okay. Maybe
we stick with pretty good.
Okay, stick
because
with
I feel like if we do something that's bad and comical with my movie, could be in poor taste.
Okay. So in that case, do you want a movie about a musician, or do you want a movie...
you got like branching
yeah.
choose your own adventure going on here.
Do you want a movie about a musician, or do you want a movie that is about sports?
Ooh, okay. Mine is about like a university professor. So, which do you think would fit better?
Probably sports.
Sports? Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, then that settles it. So I'm going to give you the movie Radio, which sounds like it's music. It's not, I promise.
And this is a good movie?
It is a good movie.
Why have I not heard
Cuba
of it?
Gooding Jr.
Oh, okay.
And, what's that one guy's name? I think it's a good movie.
Ed
It
Harris.
has its flaws. There's a particular flaw I have with it, which we'll talk about, but...
Ed Harris is in your movie?
Yeah.
Ed Harris is in my movie.
Oh my gosh!
So
wow.
That'll be fun.
That will be fun.
All right. Next week, the theme is true stories
With
that are
Ed
semi-decent and have Ed Harris in them.
That's so funny.
We're just going to put a big like Ed Harris on the front. We're going to have 2 different versions of Ed Harris on the podcast thumbnail for next week. Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. I love how that worked out.
All right. Jinx, you owe me a soda.
I was just about to say
that. Oh my god.
All right.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Bye.
So next week we'll see you for, let's see, it'll be
Radio
and A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you then. Have a good week and stay classy, San Diego.
See ya.
Bye.